So at the 2006 Junos, you guys won Country Recording of the Year. That's your first of three Juno nominations. That's your big win. What does that Juno win mean to you? To have your country, the country recognize you and your efforts and your talent and your music. What does that mean to you?
It's pretty incredible. It's definitely one of the highlights of my career to be, you're always from then on in, you're always a Juno Award winning artist. It's pretty awesome. And, I'll never forget that feeling and that, performance of being, that's probably one of the most nervous I'd ever been at we're playing our first Juno gala, and out in the audience I'm looking, and there's the guys from Nickelback, and there's Bryan Adams, and there's Shania Twain, and there's all these people in the audience sitting there watching us play, and it was horrifying. I was scared shitless, but but that was the year that we took home the trophy, and it was really something.
Yeah, all the artists that I've talked to on the podcast that have been nominated or won the Junos or performed at a Juno, all of them kind of felt this imposter syndrome, like you mentioned, looking into the crowd and seeing these diamond artists and artists that were big when you were young, and it's like, how did I get here? Like you deserve it, but there's just that, like, how did I get here? This is crazy.
Yeah, I remember meeting Ronnie Hawkins at a SOCAN Awards night when we won Songwriters of the Year for Nashville Bound, and being introduced to Ronnie Hawkins. I think he told me, he said, "Slow down, boy, you're going to break my hand." I was so excited, I was shaking his hand. But it's just incredible being, you start out as a fan of music and of all of these artists, and then to be in the same room and to be considered a peer. I still have to pinch myself. I still feel like a fan, like I did when I was 15 years old. When I walk into these rooms, I'm excited about the people that are there and who I'm going to meet. I don't think I didn't start out to win awards and to do that. I just started out as a kid who just is infatuated with music and loves the art and the creative process, and wanted to meet my heroes. And I still feel the same way now.
I had a great band on called the Dreamboats, and they had a bunch of stories about Ronnie Hawkins, where they were a huge fan of him. They were a fan of the band, or sorry, he was a fan of the band. And when they found out he was going to be selling some of his property, they asked if they could bring in recording equipment into his barn. And they actually have an EP that was recorded in his barn. And they have stories about, they went into his house to see him, and then there was like a massive thunderstorm. So they were stuck with no power in Ronnie Hawkins' room, just with candles. So it was story time for hours. And that was a big moment for them in their life. Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, to me, that is gold. I had a similar situation happen. I was recording a session from my solo album, Five Crow Silver, I put out a few years ago. I was recording at Willie Nelson's studio, Pedernales, in Texas, with Gordie Johnson was producing from Big Sugar.
Big Sugar, yeah.
And we had Chris Layton from Double Trouble, and Tommy Shannon on bass, and Chris Layton from drums on the session. And we also had Ian McLaughlin from The Faces sitting there.
A super group you put together.
And we're sitting at a table. We actually got stranded overnight because there was a freak ice storm and no one could drive home. So we're stuck all night. Same thing. Out came the drinks, and we're sitting there around this table telling stories. And I'm listening to Tom Shannon tell me about how he played Woodstock, and I was fiddling around on his bass, and he came over. He's like, "Hey, Jimi Hendrix played that bass when I was at Woodstock," and I was just like, "Holy shit!" Listening to them talk about the Rod Stewart and just all of these stories. You can't imagine, like, just being there firsthand. It was incredible, and that's the stuff I live for, really.
In 2009, you guys release your follow-up. So this is The Road Hammers 2. There's 3 more singles: Homegrown, I've Got the Scars to Prove It, and Goodbye Dust. Were you guys feeling you said from the start it was supposed to be just one album. Did you guys feel any massive pressure to follow up the success of the album and the success of those four singles?
There was a lot of pressure, and in between that, we actually put out an American release. So there was actually an American album in between the Roadhammers and the Roadhammers 2 called Blood, Sweat, and Steel, which came out in the US in I think
2008.
2008. Yeah, and that had we cut I think three new songs, two or three new songs for that album, and released the bulk of the first record with it. And that incorporated a massive amount of work for 2 years. We weren't home. You know, we just lived in a bus and in a van, going from town to town, radio station to radio station, and worked that record. And then in 2000, at the end of 2008, the bubble burst in America, and overnight the album went, or the record label went bankrupt, and we lost our record deal, and we're tied up in massive, you know, because when a company goes bankrupt that you're signed to, suddenly you're just you're a commodity that's tied to that entity, and we couldn't get out of it. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't release anything else or go anywhere to any other American labels. So we then finished. We went in and recorded the Roadhammers 2, which, so we were under, we were exhausted. We were under a lot of stress. Um, because of all of that drama that was happening. But we still managed to put together a great album that had a number one single with Scars to Prove It, and kept the train on the tracks.
There's some hilarious songs in your discography. So some of them are Getting Screwed and A Girl Who Loves to Truck. How important is a sense of humor when it comes to the Roadhammers and what you guys do?
I think it's really important, and we've always had that kind of comedy in the songs and in the group. We take the music seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously, and I think that kind of comes out in some of these songs. Even like in Nashville Bound, or you hear it in Haulin' Ass, or some of these tunes that we've done over the years that are just a lot of fun. And that's what we've always wanted this band to be, is fun. And I think that's what has kept us out on the road and kept us touring for so long, is that we're exciting and we're fun live.
So 2014, you guys put out another album called Wheels, four more singles. One of the singles, Mud, that song went platinum. It's your most played song on Spotify with over 3 million spins. What is it about that song that people love so much? I know I can see the appeal, and I can see why people would love it. I'm just curious if you can, from your perspective, why do you think that that's as big as it is?
Well, I think that's what we just talked about the fun factor, and I think that's a perfect storm, a perfect combination of the Roadhammers rock and country blend with the fun factor is in there, as well as that creative that creative twist on something that you've heard before. And that song wasn't even supposed to be on the record. The album was almost done, and we were playing it for our manager at the time, and he was like, okay, yeah, that's good. Did you guys have anything else? And we're like, well, that's kind of what we thought the record was going to be. And then Jason went, well, I have this other song that I just finished. I don't know, it could maybe be on there. I'm not sure if it's any good or not. And he put in Mud, and he played it, and it sounded very close to what the original or the finished version sounded like. And all of our collective jaws just hit the floor. We're like, are you kidding, man? This has to be on the record. So of course it was. And we had come off of a 5-year hiatus, almost, from that time, because after we put out the Roadhammers 2, the band just kind of was falling apart at the seams. Our original drummer had left. We had lost our deal because our label went bankrupt in the States, so we had lost our deal. We had lots of really hard hits. No one was really super excited about being in the band. We had worked so hard in the States to see that all kind of fall out down around our ears. We were all burnt out. So we just took a long break, I put out a solo record. Jason put out a solo record. We just kind of did our own things for a couple of years. I started working at a radio station in Edmonton doing the drive home at Kissin Country in Edmonton. And then I got a call from Jason out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, want to put the band back together?" And I'm like, hell yeah. And again, it was just like we got together to jam, and it was like we had never, even after 4 years of not playing together, it was like we had never left. It was just like boom, that first note of I'm a Roadhammer is like, oh yeah, I forgot how this felt.
You're a
And
well-oiled machine.
that's it. And we went in, and I think Wheels is my favorite album that we've done, you know, thus far. I look back on that record. I think it's the best of those both worlds, really pulling hard from those rock elements in that record, and also having songs like Mud, you know.
I have the longest and sweetest quote of the interview right here for you. So this is for the drummer for the Killjoys and Teenage Head. This is Gene Champang. Gene Champagne. Uh,
Yeah.
this is a sweet one. He says, I think about Clayton quite often. I worked with the Hammer some time ago when I wasn't playing professionally myself for a few years. I have many great memories of the guys and Clayton. Really funny stuff. My one fond memory was jamming with Clayton and Jason on an off night with the Roadhammers. I was quite rusty at the time, but what an honor. Clayton is a class act and a true pro. I admire his playing and would play with him without hesitation anytime. He's such a talent. He is also a kind soul that was really good to me, and I enjoyed his company. I wish him all the best with his Roadhammer family and his latest adventures with the congregation. Wishing you well, my friend. That's from Gene.
Oh man, I love Gene. Yeah, he's such a trip. He is a hilarious guy, and we had some great times on the bus touring together. There, we spent a lot of time together, and incredible musician and great human being. You know, and that's when I think the further down the road you get in just life in general, you just want to be around good people and do good work. And he's definitely one of those folks for sure. That's really sweet of him to say. And yeah, we had a lot of fun touring on the road.